Stay tuned in this video for the actual Starlink launch that I'm talking about. It's quite spectacular as it's flying through the atmosphere up into orbit. Keep watching. Hey everybody, I just thought I would, I think I say the same thing every time I get in here. Hey everybody, I think I'm gonna do an update. Now I was just watching a Starlink video. I know I've done some Starlink videos here on the channel, and there was a Starlink launch. I don't know what time it is right now. I'd have to look, but it's after midnight. But there was a Starlink launch at 11:41 yesterday. Yesterday now, and it was just a Starlink launch. It wasn't a major one or whatever. Even though like the Artemis moon mission's getting ready to go up here soon. I think it's going up. I didn't see it today. I think it was supposed to go up, I think, on the 26th. I'm not sure what right now is, but it was supposed to go up soon. But in the meantime, you had Starlink go up a little bit ago, probably about a half an hour ago now, and I've been doing a supercut video of that launch. So from, a couple minutes before launch while they're talking about it, and then, the last minute, when they're switching over, computer control to the Falcon 9, and then the last 10 seconds, and then as it's launching, launching and then going through the clouds and everything, the main engine cut off, and they have it's max Qs, I think, first. So once it's going up through the clouds, they hit the maximum aerodynamic pressure, which is called max Q. And then they have main engine cut off, which is MECO. Then they do a stage separation. So the booster breaks off. And then you have second engine startup, SES, where the second engine starts up and keeps boosting it. The Merlin vacuum engine, the MVAC engine, continues to boost it up into orbit. And then while the booster, the Falcon 9 booster's falling back to Earth, literally falling back to Earth, and then they do like a slow down burn while it's in the atmosphere, and then once it's a couple kilometers above the surface, they do another burn, the landing burn, and then it lands back on a ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. So, I mean, again, it's pretty routine these days. I mean, there's already quite a few Starlink satellites up there, up in space. You see all the Starlink videos of people talking about Starlink service and everything. So there's thousands up there. I don't have the exact count right now, but this launch tonight put another 54 Starlink satellites into orbit. So it's, I think it's become so common that people are almost sort of desensitized to it. But you have to realize the amazing days that we're living in when it seems like every week or every other week, you have a satellite or a rocket launching into orbit, like deploying more Starlinks. There was a launch just it was probably in the past week where they were sending, SpaceX was sending up a supply ship to the space station. I mean, it's, I guess from my childhood, we had the space shuttle, but those were like months apart, or, sometime in some years we had many launches, but after the Challenger and after the two space shuttle crashes, or they stopped for like years. And, of course, still smaller rockets were going up, but it's just exciting. I think it's just really exciting that like rockets are going up like all the time, and the kids these days. I was in talking to my youngest daughter earlier, like right before the launch happened. We were watching it live on my YouTube, and she's like, "Dad, I don't want to watch that." I'm like, "What? This is exciting." And she's like, "No, Dad, like this is boring." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I came back out to the garage here and watched the launch. Well, actually started watching it with her, and then she was like, "Okay, it's through the clouds, and okay, it's boring now." And it's just, yeah, it's just sort of crazy that society as a whole is so desensitized to just the amazing stuff that's going on in this world. And maybe us adults can appreciate it a little bit more, having lived through like the space shuttle, and if you're a bit older than me, I'm in my mid to late 40s, but a couple years older than me, if you're in your mid 50s or 60s or whatever, you saw the original moon landings, So there's really sort of three major things. Well, four. I'll say four major things in space. I guess Sputnik, the Russian Sputnik missions. The original mission went up in I want to say 1957. So my dad, who's like in his 70s, now early 70s, he was only 8 years old when that went up. And then so you had Sputnik, and then a couple others, and then the Gemini missions. There was various Russian missions, and then Gemini before Apollo. Then you had Apollo, and then you had some of the early space shuttles, and you had Skylab, and then the space shuttle. Well, the space shuttle took up a lot of the International Space Station, and that was in conjunction with Russia with the Soyuz, and they sent up their own modules, and the European Space Agency sent up their mod. I mean, it's been sort of continuous over the last 50 years. So even though the big missions, Gemini, Apollo, even though those in the space shuttle, even though those sort of ended, there's always been traffic going up if you're into the topic. So. And then, since the early 2000s and everything, then you had like Elon Musk with SpaceX. And I was telling my kids earlier, like Elon sent up his first rocket, it crashed, it blew up or whatever, sent up a second when it crashed. And there's like an interview of him saying, like, if the third one doesn't work, then the SpaceX is going to go bankrupt. It's over, but the third one worked. I think it was the third one. It was either the third or the fourth, but it worked. And then he got a contract, and now he's doing what he's doing, which is amazing. So you have the Falcon 9s that are sending up the SpaceX or the Starlink satellites, and other stuff, the Dragon modules, sending stuff to the space station, and crews to the space station, Crew 1, Crew 2, all that stuff. But he's also sending up other things, and then there's still like the European and the other space agencies still sending up rockets, and I'm sort of surprised that just people aren't more excited about it, aren't more interested in everything. So I'm gonna go ahead now, and I'm gonna go ahead and play this past night's since it's after midnight, this past night's launch, the full launch. I don't know how long it is, but. And then I'll jump back in after that. So here we go.
And at T0, the TE will actually move a little bit further away and clear the way for Falcon 9 as it lifts off. We supported the CRS-24 mission to send supplies to the International Space Station. Our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas, will be supporting recovery today and is currently located out in the Atlantic Ocean, which is what you see there on your screen.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And great call out, Falcon 9 in startup. That means the flight computers have now taken over the launch countdown, just waiting the final go from the launch director.
LD, go for launch. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. Liftoff, Starlink 423. Stage 1, chamber pressure is nominal.
You are watching Falcon 9 as it accelerates our Starlink satellites into orbit. And we got some really cool views of the vehicle flying through the clouds there.
Falcon is supersonic.
And that call out that Falcon is supersonic, that means that the vehicle is traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
And we had a call out that we have just passed through max Q. That is the maximum dynamic pressure that the vehicle sees on ascent. Events coming up here shortly, happening back to back. That will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES-1, or second stage engine start 1. Now, MECO is where all 9 of those engines that you see lit up on your screen, they will shut down in preparation for stage separation. Once the stages separate from each other, stage 1 will make its way back down to Earth, while stage 2 continues, carrying our Starlink satellites to orbit with SES-1, or second stage engine startup 1, and that's where the MVAC engine on the second stage will ignite.
Stage separation. MVAC ignition. Fairing separation.
And we just had MECO, stage separation, SES-1 on your right-hand screen. You can see that MVAC engine lighting up there, and we did have confirmation of fairing deploy. Today marks the 3rd flight for both fairing halves and the 30th mission this year utilizing flight-proven fairings. And we're just under 20 seconds away from the landing burn beginning on the first stage, and shortly after the landing burn begins, we will also have SECO 1, or second engine cutoff 1.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And the landing burn has begun on the first stage. And we are attempting to land on our drone ship a shortfall of gravitas tonight.
Landing light deploy. And SECO. Stage 1 landing is confirmed.
And there you can see Falcon 9 has landed. This marks the 138th landing of an orbital class rocket. 110th. This is the 110th reflight of a Falcon 9 first stage booster. And we also did hear SECO 1 on the second stage.
Loss of signal, J6 and PPF.
And we also did hear a confirmation of good orbit. Now, today's stack of Starlink satellites also marks the highest ever payload mass to orbit on a recoverable Falcon 9 at 16.7 metric tons. Stage 2 is now carrying 54 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. And with confirmation of first stage landing and successful SECO 1, we'll wrap up today's launch coverage.
So that was the end of tonight's launch. But if you stay tuned here a little bit longer, I grabbed a video from a Los Angeles, well, it was actually up at I forget what base it was in California, but there was a launch from California that like flew over Los Angeles. I don't know if it was this year, last year, whatever, but of a very similar launch that happened tonight, and you can see everything you see in the video tonight. You can see happen from the ground in this video, and the unique thing about it is that it was the rocket was launched right after sunset, or right around sunset, so you can see the stage separations. You can see the fairings. The fairings are basically like on the top of the rocket where the satellites are. When the fairings break off, once it's up in the orbit, you see the fairings break off. So you can see like all the stages of the launch. So all the way from the ground, the MECO, the separations, the second engine startup, and then once it gets up into the atmosphere, it goes from a very thin line, like a very thin trail, to being very wide. And because you can sort of see as the rocket's breaking up through the atmosphere, like punching out through different layers and stuff, you can sort of see where it gets wider, like the trail behind it gets wider and wider and wide until it's almost like it's like a huge trail behind it, like a big oval. And you'll see that if you stay tuned here. And then, once all the major stuff's done, I sort of cut off the video or whatever. But you can see every step that you see in the launch earlier in this video. You can see all the steps from the ground in this unique, just post sunset video out of California. So it's really, really cool stuff. Really neat. It's I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this, and I doubt you have either. And that's it. I mean, that's pretty much the whole video. You know, I did the launch this past evening, talked about it, then showed a launch from Los Angeles from out that way. That was visible during the early evening in LA. So that was super spectacular. And you saw all the same stages that happened this past night. You saw all that in the video from Los Angeles that was previously taken. So yeah, really good stuff, people. So I'm gonna leave it there tonight, jump out of here, and you all have a good one. Everybody have a good night, and peace out.